What happens to your culture when somebody leaves your team? My name is Matt Davis, president of Pastoral Transitions. I want to have a talk about what I think is a missing link, an overlooked piece of our culture conversations. You know, we spend a lot of time and effort and finances to try to invest in building a great workplace and building a culture that is centered around mission and values and vision. How do we bring everybody together, enjoy the process, enjoy each other? We work all this stuff out, right? We spend so much intentionality and time in doing that. And then we overlook this one piece. It gets undermined when we have somebody who transitions, when we have to let somebody go, even if it's hard. Is there actually a good way to do that and still preserve unity? So let's have a conversation about this. I've uniquely been able to sit in a seat where I've led a large organization. I used to be a pastor at a church, and part of that process, when I've done that, I got to lead a large organization in a very busy metropolitan area, and I've had my share of letting people go and totally blowing it and totally messing it up, and all of the questions and all of the secrecy. It's amazing because we will do everything we possibly can to say we value openness, our door's always open, and transparency, and if you have ideas, let us know. But when we let somebody go, it seems like all of those rules kind of go out the window, and now there's private conversations, the doors are closing, and a lot of people have a lot more questions than they have answers. Now, not only do we see this in the work that we do with Pastoral Transitions, and we help in faith communities and nonprofits, Christian higher education, but this has tremendous application even in the marketplace, for-profit world, right? How we say goodbye matters. We spend a lot of time saying hello and wanting it to be really good. In fact, we liken it to the coronation of a king. Right? I want you to think about, you remember the movie Tangled, and when you coronate a king, when you bring somebody in, the drawbridge is down, the castle is open for business, right? The flags are furled. You just think about the little girls, they're flailing around in their dresses, and the birds are singing, and the trumpets are heralding. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, and everybody in the kingdom is gathered around for this moment. It's almost as if we take the sword and we say, I now dub thee our new employee, and the kingdom erupts, and everybody's so excited. We used to set these scenarios up in our organization, right? So people would come, and the day before their first day on the job, we would send email. We're so excited. They might even get a video. They show up the first day. There's like a balloon tied to their chair, and there's a welcome box, and it has the company mug and a t-shirt. We'll take you out for lunch, and we're going to let you order whatever you want, right? Like all of those things are really great. We're really good at bringing people in, and I think we're actually really good in getting better at that kind of part that takes place in the everyday life. But I'm going to be really honest, I don't think that we're cutting it. I don't think that we're doing very well when it comes to saying goodbye. Now, I'm not just saying this because I see this every day and all the time in the different organizations that we work with. I have a personal experience. I told you that I was a pastor for more than 2 decades, and I say that I earned my way out, and I did. I had a moral failure, and because of that, I had to leave. And what you realize in that season is that those people who are really close to you, who are friends and part of your community, things just start going quiet. That the openness that we once had, the funny text groups that you were a part of, they slowly start to disappear. And actually, not even slowly. They happen very, very quickly. And you find yourself in a season of isolation and loneliness, and you're trying to figure out what is next. And so we want to do everything that we possibly can. If we're going to build a culture that matters, then we want to be able to keep a culture that matters. I want to just give you 3 very quick things to be able to help you. And you can apply these tomorrow morning. And this will be a process to be able to start building a healthier culture, especially in those times when we say goodbye, right? Because sometimes that culture, when we welcome everybody and we say, I now dub the employee, when we say goodbye to them, sometimes it's like, don't let the drawbridge hit you on the way out. So here's number 1. Number 1, start with transparency. I don't think that we do a good job of being honest. If we could just be kind and honest, then we can actually solve a lot of problems. We should never have to let somebody go and have it be a surprise for them. They should see it coming. And how we do this is we sit down and say, here's the expectation, right? We have to have stuff like job description so we know what we're doing when we show up every day. But if somebody's not cutting it, we sit down and say, look, I want to have a conversation today about your performance and how this is going. And here's the 3 things that need to happen over the next 6 months. And we're going to journey through this with you. But if it doesn't happen, we're going to find a new spot for you, whether that's here in our organization or it might have to be somewhere else. But there's an easier way and there's a harder way. We'd love to work with you on this, right? And I will actually sometimes say, like, I call it the parable of 2 hats, right? Like, you put on one hat and I call it the boss hat, and you say, well, that's, as your boss, this is what I need to do. And as a friend, as somebody who cares about you, here's another one, right? There's a different hat that I'm going to wear. I really care about you, and I don't want to have these conversations, right? I'd rather have peace, and let's everyone keep rowing in the same direction. But if that day comes and you have to let somebody go, then at least that they know that that's coming. And so the second thing I want us to think about is to be ridiculously, unreasonably honorable, to show dignity, to show love, to show grace. How do we celebrate the things that they've done? Now, they may have been dropping the ball in A, B, and C in all these different places, but you can always find something. You always showed up. You always cared about people, right? You helped us move from this point to this point in the business, in the company. We've seen lives changed in this way. So we do that privately, and we do that very publicly. And we honor them on the way out, just like we honored them on the way in. And then the last thing is we want to provide support. And what that means is, what happens to somebody after they've left their position and they're moving on to something else? And so what we do is we've really created a suite of services, a buffet of services, to be able to say, we're going to walk with you. Now, we say your last day in your spot is day 0. That is your last day of employment. That's day 0. And the question is always, well, what happens on day 1? And so a lot of organizations will bring us in, and we get to walk with that person over the course of 6 months. And we're doing it in the areas of career, coaching, and counseling, right? Vocational discernment. We have a suite of assessments, and we're going to see, what are you good at? And we're going to also take a look at what are some of the things that you're not good at, and how did this not work out before? On the coaching front, if you have blind spots, or 360-degree reviews are often very revealing about something that might need to change. And so how do we actually show up and let you see some of the things that you might not see? And also, along with the coaching, is financial coaching, right? If you just lost a position, you might need some help with that. And so how do we actually create budgets, and how do we figure out what you're going to do with rolling over a 403B if you have something like that, right? Or your 401k. So how do we figure out some of those pieces? And then the last area is in counseling. And oftentimes this kind of transition for people, it really puts them in a place where they've been wrecked. Not just them, but it might be as a couple, it might be in their entire family. It really depends on the spectrum of why they're being let go. But we come alongside them and say, look, we as an organization, we're going to figure out what's next, and we're going to help you by putting you in a position with a group that's going to walk with you. My mom used to say that the girl who broke your heart is not going to be the one to help you fix it. And so we get to step in and, as a third party, on behalf of the organization, walk with them through that. And if we do that well, we'll grow our organization. And we call it multiply, not divide. I figured, nobody wants to wear a hat that says Pastoral Transitions across the front. So this is a math problem, but it means multiply, not divide. And it stirred up a lot of conversation. But how do we grow what we're doing instead of continuing to divide? Because when we have a transition that doesn't go well, everybody else is watching. They're thinking, I'm not safe, or is that how they're going to treat me? And so we want to be about growing. And so if your culture matters and you're here because likely it does, we want you to think about, how does that happen? How does culture matter? How do we prove that our culture matters, especially in those times of change, of transition and saying goodbye? May you be an organization that puts everything in every part, whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end of a relationship, that you would do that well, that we would love people well and show them honor. We would love to help you have that conversation. If you want to talk more, you can reach me, but you can get us at pastoraltransitions.com/culture, and we would love to have that conversation. Thanks for listening.